So shall we start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation.
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. So the Transportation Committee roll call.
Carol Collins. See her online. Christine David. Christine, you're muted. Or I have a David there. I don't know if it's Christine David or if it's somebody else.
That might be me, David Metzger.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Sergeant.
And Carol has joined.
Yes. So I have Carol. Christine is not on the line. Joe Davis.
Here.
Sriram.
Here.
Iyer. Tom Owen.
Good evening.
Great. And we have our liaison, Councilmember Widmer.
Here,
And from the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, Steve Bailoff,
Here.
Betsy Bradford,
Here.
David Jones. David is not. John Langbein,
Here.
Jerome Lugers.
Here.
Great. So we have a quorum from both.
great.
Is there any member of the public? We're open for public comment right now for items that are not on the agenda.
I see no public comment. I see nobody from the public on the line right now.
So for the Transportation Committee members, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Seconded.
So passed. Now moving on to the regular agenda. We're starting with the Transportation Development Act, the grant application. Robert, over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair and members of the Transportation Committee and the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee. This item involves a discussion of a proposed grant application to San Mateo County CCAG for funding of pedestrian crossing improvements at the Alameda Avenue, Stockbridge Avenue intersection. I'm going to bring up a couple of things, and as I do that, I did want to say that there are a number of requirements regarding the grant application process. I did include in the package some information with regards to the grant application package, as well as information from our bicycle pedestrian master plan and the San Mateo County Comprehensive Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. And so I did want to highlight that there's approximately $2.25 million available for both planning and implementation grants through the program. Most of it's geared towards construction projects with about 1.95 million available. But applicants are limited to one project in each category, whether that's, so you can't submit for more than one capital project or more than one. It requires a 10% match as a minimum, and the projects need to be listed in an approved bicycle pedestrian multimodal or other plan. And so as we looked at different projects and looking at the criteria, we selected the intersection improvements at Alameda and Atherton. Consider some bicycle projects, but the cost of those projects exceeded what the grant would allow us to move forward with. And so up on my screen, I have a screen share showing what those improvements would look like. And so what we'd be doing is putting in crosswalk on the north leg of the Alameda de las Pulgas Stockbridge intersection. Currently, there are some newly constructed ramps that were put in by the county with their slurry seal project on Alameda. We'd be putting in rapid flashing beacons at the intersection. They would be pedestrian activated. And along with that, there'd be some advanced warning signs that would be pedestrian activated LED devices as well. So when somebody hits the push button, in addition to the rapid flashing beacons at the crosswalk, there'll be some advanced signage that also lights up for approaching vehicle traffic. And then also we'd be putting in some of the shark tooth advanced limit lines so that cars will stop a little bit before the intersection for safe pedestrian passage.
So who determines the matching level? Do we submit it at 10% and can they change what that is? Or do we just submit and then they decide where within the range we're matching?
Grant request with a 10% match. And that's roughly about $10,000 to $11,000 for the project. We are partnering with the county. Part of the project's within unincorporated county. And the county, as part of that partnership, is developing the design drawings for the project. And they are also helping us with aspects of the grant application. And that includes a video which they prepared to assist with the grant application. Typically, the folks that review the projects do a coordinated field visit to all the project sites, but with COVID, that's been pulled back. And so they've requested the applicants to prepare a video presentation or other visual aids for the project. And so I received the video that the county prepared this afternoon, and I'm happy to share it with you this evening. And if you have any questions before I move forward with that, I'm happy to take those.
Robert, I'm not sure, because there were planning funds and capital funds, but it seems like you already have the plan of what you want to do. So are we applying to actually do it, or are we applying?
We're applying to actually do it.
Okay.
And I think, I don't know if you recall, but I know that we have in the past received a few residents come by, I know, to the Transportation Committee, and I believe also to the BPAC, requesting crossing improvements at this intersection. And the request also came through as part of our neighborhood traffic management action plan outreach efforts as well.
Now, you said that if we apply for this, which, we're in the process of doing, then the other money is not available to us. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
We could also apply for planning funds, but you're only allowed to submit one capital project and one planning project. And the planning projects are geared towards comprehensive type planning projects, bicycle master plans, pedestrian plans, as opposed to individual project level.
So can we look at planning the Selby Lane bike lanes or pedestrian ways, which we've been asking for years and are desperately needed, and their multi-economic group, which, the county's there, Redwood City, we can support that, as well as, it just happens to be on our property. So I think if we could, as a secondary thing, okay, it just is my suggestion, okay? If we could, and I don't know how much the planning would cost, but we need to have a plan ready to go for when we have the money to do it. So let's go ahead and spend somebody else's money to do it, if we can.
Okay. We will be looking for opportunities in the future to do so. The type of funding for planning applications that they are offering is not a project level plan, but more on a global perspective, whether that's a comprehensive bicycle plan, pedestrian master plan, those types of documents, as opposed to individual project level.
All right, okay. Well,
Um,
it's
and
it's
so-
worth a try. It's worth a
Yes.
try to discuss it with them.
Okay, so I'm going to try and share the video
This is
now.
John.
and
This is
Hopefully
John.
you're all. you
Yeah,
all
I have
hear
one
it.
question.
Yes.
This is John Langbine. Is the county going to do any matching? Obviously, they've been doing a lot of hard work behind the scenes coming up with the plans, but are they going to do a 10% match too or not?
No, the agreement that we reach is that we would provide the cash match. Unfortunately, this grant opportunity doesn't consider in-kind matches.
Okay.
And so the agreement that we reached was that, we'd work with them to develop, they do the design documents. And obviously they've spent some time doing that. They've started that and are working and have done the video. And so they'll complete the project design documents. We'll provide some of the matching funds for the construction, and we'll be sharing the improvements. Okay, so hopefully you see the video on your screen. And go ahead and start.
Yeah, we can see it. Just go.
The Alameda de las Pulgas and Stockbridge Avenue Crosswalk Improvement Project. The project is located at the border of the town of Atherton, town of Woodside, and unincorporated San Mateo County. It is also located near the Woodside High School. The intersection is primarily surrounded by residential uses. The intersection is two-way stop controlled, with Alameda de las Pulgas being uncontrolled. The intersection currently has no marked crosswalks. And Alameda de las Pulgas is classified as a minor arterial and averages around 1,400 vehicles during the peak hour, whereas Stockbridge Avenue is classified as a major collector and averages around 200 vehicles during the peak hour. With the heavy traffic on Alameda de las Pulgas, many pedestrians find it difficult to find gaps to cross. Vehicles were observed not yielding to pedestrians even when they're in the intersection. There are also many vehicles on Stockbridge waiting for gaps to cross and turn into Alameda de las Pulgas, adding to the complexity of the intersection.
Who's the guinea pig that volunteered to keep
Proposed
doing that?
improvements will install a high visibility crosswalk with advanced yield lines on each approach of the intersection. The crosswalk will be accompanied by pedestrian activated rectangular rapid flashing beacon warning lights and an advanced flashing pedestrian warning sign. These are proven countermeasures that would greatly improve vehicle use rates and enhance safety for pedestrians.
So I heard that comment about,
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, so the poor woman who just kept walking back and forth in that intersection stuff.
But she got her hazard pay that day, huh?
Yeah. That was great footage. That was the drone footage they got above. That was
yeah,
great.
no, it was really good and very illustrative of the issues there.
Hey, Robert, I'm fully supportive of getting it done. My only question, and Bill kind of alluded to it, is is this the priority? If we got one, is this the priority one? It sounds like you've done that work to say there was one other you might have rated higher, but it sounded like it just doesn't fit this project based on what the county restrictions are.
Yeah, no, there are several projects that we looked at. As the council member mentioned, we did look at bicycle projects, and unfortunately, the ones that we would like to move forward, whether it be on Selby or Atherton Avenue, Stockbridge, et cetera, they require widening of the roadway, which the funding and complexity kind of put it out of the reach of this kind of grant. The other project that we considered was another pedestrian project that we think is going to be needed as we move forward with the town center. And that's putting in crossing improvements across Fair Oaks from Lloyden Park. From Lloyden Drive. So that is another pedestrian improvement project that we see in the offing. But since that's not listed in any of the plans that we have, we didn't think it was it's really not going to rate very well in terms of the competitive nature of this grant. And with Alameda de las Pulgas being on the county's backbone network and being actually listed in the comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian master plan developed by the county, we think it's going to rate fairly high. And so that's one of the other reasons why we picked the project.
I think it's a great addition. I mean, it needs to be done. I don't even know why anybody would question it. As someone who walks across the Alameda nearly every day, it needs to be there, is my opinion. So great idea.
Okay.
Robert, can I ask, when you talked about talking about the Fair Oaks crossing, is that the city planners, or who are we in that part?
So in that instance, I think if you recall, there was a conceptual design that was starting to be developed as part of the neighborhood traffic management action plan. That didn't include crossing improvements, but it did include some reconfiguration for trying to improve safety there. And with the town center opening up, we envision and hope that we'll get more foot traffic here than we had in the past. And part of the public comments that we received during the neighborhood traffic management plan was also to provide some pedestrian accommodation from Lloyden Drive. So we've had some internal discussions here in the city. I talked it over with George, and it's something that we see the need for. But as indicated,
kind of a new development.
Yeah.
Should be part of a change notice to the Amoroso contract. We should just put it in the change and just get it done. I mean, that's how I would have you, if I was the city manager, I'd say bring it to the council that way. Put it in a change notice, have Amoroso manage it. We got money still left over as change notices, and let's go ahead and do it. But that's just my input to you, Robert.
Yeah.
That you and George got to figure that out. But if you did it that way, obviously I would be in favor of it. And I think everybody here would be in favor of it. Those people from Lloyden Park need to be able to walk over to the library. That's one of the benefits of living over there, or ride their bikes over. And that's a dangerous intersection coming over now. Now it would be more, before they had, had a different way to go. But now they got to go right in front of those railroad tracks where the guys are flying over there. And, it's a bad situation. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm not directing, obviously.
Okay. I don't know if there's any other comments or questions on the project, but if not, we'd like to hear from the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee their affirmative support for the application.
This is John Langbine. I move that we support this application.
The second that.
Who was the
This is
second?
David
Jerry Lugers.
DPAC, and I'm in favor.
Likewise.
Me too.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you all.
Right? Go get the money.
We'll do what we can. Okay. Suram, do you want to move forward on the agenda?
Yes, now that we've covered that aspect of it, shall we move on to the next one, which is the Menlo Park speed limit reductions in school zones? So Robert, are you going to be giving a presentation on that?
We actually have Renee Bale from Menlo Park with us. And give me a second and I will share his presentation and he can give it. There, do you see the presentation on the screen? Great. Renee?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Renee Bale, Associate Transportation Engineer with the City of Menlo Park. I've worked for the city now for 20 years. So thank you for this opportunity to share a very short PowerPoint presentation on our program to reduce speed limits in school zones, which is consistent with the California Vehicle Code. Next slide, please. Before that, yeah, so this is the items that I want to briefly talk about tonight. The relationship of speed and crash severity, police and code background, crash ranking result, the Menlo Park City Council action, and current status of this program. Next slide, please. You might have seen, some of you might have seen this before. There've been studies relating speed versus crash severity. As you can see from the table here, which was provided by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, Transportation Planning, that speed has an effect on crash risk and fatality risk. As speeds increase, the greater the risk for crashes, and also the greater risk for fatality. And as you can see here, that the speed 40 plus would result in a 90% probability of a crash and a 85% probability of a fatality to pedestrians or bicyclists getting hit.
And that's based on where where is the car versus where is the victim?
Where's the car? Where's the victim? So
yeah, where's the victim? So somebody's driving 40 miles an hour and somebody runs out and they're, I don't know how far in front of them, and the car needs 90 feet to crash. Obviously, as it goes slower and slower, then the fatality rate would go down. So I guess because I've seen these statistics before, but I've never had that answered. Where is how far in front of the car is the victim?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me go to the next slide first, and then see if I can answer your question. So as you can, this was referenced from the NACTO, that's the National Association of City Transportation Officials. And as you can see from the first chart here, that crashes at higher speeds are more forceful, which is obvious because, you know, the greater the speeds, the greater the impacts are when the car hits a pedestrian or a bicyclist. And then the second chart below it, which shows that with higher speeds, vehicles to travel further and have longer braking distance to be able to brake to avoid a pedestrian or a bicyclist. And then the graph on the right shows that at higher speeds, drivers have a narrower field of vision. So as drivers drive faster, they tend to have a narrower field of vision or not being able to see as much as when they're driving at lower speeds.
Okay, but okay. All right. Well, if you could get that information, if you can find that information or point Robert where it might be, that would be good information that I would like to see. I think the whole committee would like to see. I'm not saying I'm not against this because I think it's a great idea, although a lot of the traffic by, say, for example, Encinal, you can't even get to 5 miles an hour because it's so crowded on the street. But the question no one ever can answer is the child or the person like 10 feet in front, like it would show here in this field of vision where they're almost right there, or are they way the heck out? I can't see this chart on the bottom below the speed, the exponential speed chart. So you got that bar chart. I can't, maybe it shows where the person is, but it looks like they're kind of pretty far out. So anyway, it'd be good information to get. I'd appreciate it if you can get it to Robert. That would be great. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no problem. Certainly, Council Member Bill, I'll try to get that information and give that to Robert.
Thank you.
All right, next slide, please. So the speed reduction in school zones are meeting certain city goals and policies, such as we have the city has a policy of Vision Zero, which is to eliminate traffic fatalities and reduce non-fatal collisions by 50% by 2040. And the city also has a policy to develop, implement enforcement program. As you can see, this speed reduction in school zones in accordance with vehicle code will enable our police department to enforce speed limit with the use of electronic devices such as radar without having to do a speed survey or a speed study for that portion of the school zone. And also the speed reduction in school zone will support the city's policy circulation 1.9, which will support safe routes to school program to enhance children's safety, safety of school children that walk or bike to school. Next slide, please. So last year, when we presented the updated or the engineering speed survey to our city council, one of the motion that was provided to staff was to reduce the speed limit on school zones to the furthest extent of the law. And the law that we were able to look at is the California Vehicle Code section 22358.4 B, and this grants the authority to local jurisdictions by resolution to reduce speed limit to 15 miles per hour within 500 feet of school grounds, and also extend the 25 mile per hour speed limit in school zones 500 to 1,000 feet from school grounds, only when school children are present. So this is during school drop-off, school pickup, and lunch recess. So this is not a 24/7 speed limit reduction. This is only enforceable when school children are there, either walking or biking during pickup, drop-off, and recess. And also there's a stipulation that this is not applicable to all roadway segments. These are only applicable to roadway segments that are within a residential district. The posted speed limit is no greater than 30 miles per hour, and that the number of through lanes of traffic are no more than 2.
So Renee, just a quick question. When the council said, okay, we'd like to do this, they're talking about all schools. So whether or not they were parochial schools, like for example, on Laurel, where there's Nativity School on the corner of Oak Grove and Middlefield, or at any of the private schools, etc. Right? All schools.
Yes. So I'll see later in the presentation the 16 schools where we're going to be implementing the school reduction include both public and private schools, and it's ranged from preschool all the way to middle school. We don't have a high school in that map or in our program right now.
Okay, thanks.
Next slide, please. So it's also in compliance with the California City of Menlo Park Municipal Code, in which the City Council by resolution can order installation of traffic control devices, which includes speed limit signs. Next slide, please. So this is not unique for Menlo Park. There have been local jurisdictions that have implemented the speed limit reduction in school zones in accordance with the CBC in California. And these are the cities that are kind of we've known to have that implemented, and that includes San Francisco, San Jose, Mountain View, Los Altos, and Sacramento. And I forgot to put Palo Alto. Palo Alto also has implemented the speed limit reduction in school zones. Next slide, please. So in Menlo Park, unfortunately, this collisions is an issue for the city, and it's shown here in the 2018 crash ranking, which was conducted by the California Office OTS, or the Office of Traffic Safety. And it's, as you can see from the slide here, that out of the 97 incorporated cities with population between 25,001 and 50,000, Menlo Park ranked 12th for the number of victims killed and injured for crashes involving pedestrians younger than 15 years old, and 4th for the number of victims killed and injured for crashes involving bicyclists younger than 15 years old. With the speed limit reduction in school zones, the city hope that it would reduce the accidents and make the crash ranking results better for Menlo Park. Next slide, please. So we presented this on August 17, 2021 to the City of Menlo Park City Council. And subsequently, the City Council adopted a resolution reducing the speed limit in school zones for 19 schools in Menlo Park in accordance with the CBC. And as the next slide would show, these are the schools, the school maps, the schools that we are implementing the speed reduction in accordance with the California Vehicle Code. And as I mentioned previously, this include both public and private school. Nativity School is one of them. The public school that we share with Atherton include Hillview School, and I don't know what else. And there are private schools.
You have that play. It looks like all of Laurel is shut down. So I assume that church that's over on Ravenswood, do they have? I guess they have a play school, and then there's that play school area that's right behind your city park, right?
Right. So that includes the Menlo Park Children's Center or Child Care Center.
Okay.
And private schools on Santa Cruz, St. Raymond's, and then Nativity School, and then you have Hillview School, and then you also have La Entrada School in West Menlo Park. So this is pretty much all the.
Why not Encinal? Why? Because Encinal is shared, and you're
Yes,
going to ask us to share. So your proposal is that you're asking this group to consider. Is that we would share Encinal and we would share some other places like Valparaiso, or what?
Right. Well, right now I'm just presenting the ones that are implemented in schools and roadway segments that are in Menlo Park. Certainly, we want to the town of Atherton to consider schools that the City of Menlo Park shares jurisdictions with Atherton, like Encinal School and maybe the schools on Valparaiso, the private schools like Mennett School and St. Joseph and Sacred Heart School. So, those are the schools that we have common jurisdictions with Atherton, and we're kind of living up to Atherton if they want to pursue the same speed limit reduction that we are going to be implementing in Menlo Park schools. And we're also looking at working this with San Mateo County, where we also share jurisdiction with Laurel. I think it's lower Laurel School on Ringwood Avenue.
Okay.
So that's something also that we need to work with the San Mateo County and see how they feel about reducing the speed limit zones on Ringwood Avenue and maybe on Coleman and other county streets.
Renee, a question for you. Maybe this is obvious, but I don't know. Could you just explain how this would impact schools like MA High School, which is a high traffic area, versus like an Oak Knoll, which is obviously much more residential? How does these new laws get applied in those two different situations?
Right. So the main reason why, MA, the Middlefield, is a higher traffic and higher speed roadway. So it has on the city portion of it, I think it has 35 miles per hour speed limit. So this won't be applicable because the speed limit is greater than 30 miles per hour. In Oak Knoll, where we have a speed limit, it's residential, and also the posted speed limit there is 25 miles per hour. So it's feasible for us to reduce the speed limit there to 15 miles per hour within the 500 distance from the school grounds. So that's the main difference with MA versus Oak Knoll School. MA has a lot more higher speed than compared to Oak Knoll School.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful, because I guess for Sacred Heart and Menlo, they would be excluded as well because of the higher speed limits.
Yeah, that's probably maybe not as feasible as the other schools that we have here. I think it says 30 miles per hour speed limit, but I think people there are probably driving more than that, so it may not be feasible to have that speed limit reduction that we're proposing for the Menlo Park schools.
Renee, did you look at the history of accidents at each of these locations? Have you weighed into that, or it's nice to do just a blanket thing, and not criticizing one way or the other.
Yeah.
Some statistics would probably be good. I mean, you had those other statistics from 2018, but where do they really occur? Right.
So unfortunately, we don't, or at least we have some school accidents in our, but we didn't look at every school. So we only looked at the major schools like the Bellhaven Elementary School in the Bellhaven neighborhood. We looked at the accidents there, and also at the Hillview School and Oak Knoll School. And the accidents there are very significant compared to the other schools in the area, in the city. So we did look at some, but we didn't look at every school.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I ask, when you did the ranking of the 97 cities, was one good or bad?
One is bad. So when I say 12, yeah, we're the 12th worst, or if we say fourth, yeah, the fourth worst. So we're the city ranks really bad with respect to accidents.
So Renee, I just want to be clear, like for MA, what you did, you couldn't do anything on Middlefield because of the speed limit, but you put it on the side streets on Ravenswood and Ringwood, or
no, we're not proposing any right now for for MA. because it's the school is in Atherton. So this is something that we need to work with Atherton before we propose anything on Middlefield or Ravenswood or
Okay.
even on Ringwood. So.
Sorry, I was looking at the map. So
Yeah.
in a case like us, like a situation like Encinal, which is one side of the school is on Middlefield, which has a higher speed limit, and then Encinal Avenue, and then Bill's Point, during the hours you're speaking of, other than lunch maybe, but during pickup and drop off, nobody's going over 15 miles an hour because it's just deadlock. So what's the recommendation there? If we can't do anything on Middlefield, and we post a speed limit during 15 miles an hour during pickup and drop off and lunch?
Yeah, so right now on the city portion of Middlefield, I don't think we can do anything because the speed limit is 35. But I'm not sure what the speed limit is on the Atherton side, on the Atherton side of Middlefield, north of Ravenswood. I'm not sure what the speed limit there. But Oak Grove has a speed limit of, I think, 25 miles per hour. So that's also
Oak Grove is 25,
Yeah.
Encinal 25, our part of Laurel is 25, and then we've reduced parking at the north end of it to keep people out of the bike lanes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Ravenswood, I think on our side, it's 30 miles per hour. So we did propose to reduce the speed limit there, within the school zone or 500,000 feet from the school zone to 25 miles per hour.
Yeah, there's signs by Laurel School, and there are signs that are further down that say, when children present, and then it reduces down as you get closer to the edge intersection, which is where Laurel School is actually at that corner.
Right. So we do have the 25 mile per hour. So the 15 mile per hour will reduce those that are within 500 feet from the school grounds.
And then one other question, you may not be answered, but I'm sure that Bill can or someone else. So for Las Alamitas, we can't adjust the speed on Alameda, right? That's a county or state highway, right? Or what's the?
Yeah, I think that's a county street. So I don't know what the speed limit there is. If it's 30 miles per hour, then it meets the requirement, for the speed reduction there. But if it's more than 30 miles per hour, it will not.
It's county
25, I think.
I can't remember the speed limit. It's probably 30-ish. I can't remember what it's 35, but it's probably 30. I know farther south before the business district, it used to be 35.
Yeah, there are parts of that are 30. There's a couple parts that it shrinks down as it's getting closer to Santa Cruz. It shrinks down to 20. But I think it's 30. I don't believe it's 35.
But again, my point, Bill, I think is we can't even do anything about that, right? We're not allowed to just change the speed limit on.
No, we would need to coordinate with,
the county.
Yeah, the owner. The same as if we want to do something on ECR, we need to coordinate with the state.
And Middlefield's the same way, right?
Well,
I'm not sure. Middlefield is a major road, but I don't think it's owned by the county.
The town owns portions of Alameda de las Pulgas, and we own Middlefield Road within our jurisdictional
Yeah,
limits.
right. We own Middlefield.
The limit line between the county and the town on Alameda is Camino Al Lago.
Okay.
But right now, I think what we're doing is we're providing this information. We're having Menlo Park provide information regarding the program that they are embarking on. This is not an action item for us, but really just so that we understand the program that they've started embarking on.
But if we wanted to do something like Joe was saying, and we thought the transportation committee and then the council said, hey, this is a good idea. Why don't you guys go look into it? You would coordinate with the county and we would come to a mutual agreement, right? I mean, that's how it would work. then you'd come back and say they agreed or they didn't agree or whatever. So. You still there?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I think that one of the things that we would do as part of that analysis, in addition to coordinating with PD, who would be responsible for enforcement, is to really delve into the accident history in the area.
Yeah, right.
To provide that information to see whether or not that history warrants that sort of speed reduction.
Yeah, that's how I would want to look at it. Just like when we brought up the Oak Grove thing, give me the specifics.
Yeah,
I'd like to see, where are the accidents, and is this really the problem, or is it really another problem? So
I have a question for Renee before he signs off here. But I mean, just in terms of what Menlo Park's doing in the way of enforcement, aside from signage, what else are they doing? Are the police doing more to patrol? Are there any kinds of new fancy signs, the flashing signs, anything that might actually make this more effective?
Let me show you the next slide and see what we are currently going to be doing now. So this is a sample work order that we're going to be that we already have given to our sign installation contractor, and this is the Hillview Middle School. And as you can see, the map, the legends on the right, which shows the detail A. So this is the sign that we'll be putting up there, which will show the school children symbol with the school plate underneath, and then a 15-mile-per-hour regulatory sign, and underneath, which you cannot see, is when school children are present. So this is pretty much what you'll see out there, and we need those signs in order for our PD to be able to enforce the speed limit with the use of radar or other electronic devices.
So Renee, on Olive Street, since you come up Olive Street and then you hit a stop sign, what's the benefit of going 15 miles an hour, 500 feet down Olive, and then also, taking Elder down? Maybe kids run across the street there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And see doing it on Santa Cruz, but the other two side streets just don't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I actually used to live on Elder in that red zone depicted. I can tell you it was a war zone with people crossing. So I think I wish this was in place when we lived there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about then consider Olive, but I guess hopefully you'd look at what the traffic is like. I mean, I'm not, obviously we're not Menlo Park, but I would think you'd look at what type of traffic. We got some good information now on Elder, but
right. But the speed limit reduction is bidirectional. So you might expect traffic slowing down as you approach the stop sign on Santa Cruz, but farther away from Santa Cruz, like you might be speeding there, as you're farther away from the stop sign. And then for the other direction, as you go away from the stop sign, that you'll tend to drive faster too. And similarly for Olive, for Elder, well, you have a traffic signal there on Elder and Santa Cruz. Same thing that might be happening too. We're trying to capture the ones that are farther away from the stop sign or farther away from the traffic signal.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, this is something that would enable, from the enforcement perspective, that would enable the PD to be able to enforce it without having to do a speed survey that we normally do for other streets that would require a speed survey in order to be enforceable by radar in accordance with the California Vehicle Code.
Right.
So as we install the signs, definitely we're going to be working with our PD and see, what the level of enforcement they're going to get, and then also we'll be comparing the accidents before and after the installation of signs and see how effective the signs are. So those are the things that we will be looking at, once we have the signs installed.
So on Elder, that part that then goes from Pulitzer all the way to Santa Cruz, where it's gray, and the part of Santa Cruz that's gray between the two oranges, that's already 25. You're going to reduce that to 15 as well. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
So the orange part there, that's the extension of the 15 miles per hour, because that's the 500 feet from the school ground.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yep.
There you go.
Oh, thank you, Renee. Really appreciate
Thank you.
your time this evening in terms of providing the information.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from either committee members? Do we have any
I'm just
members?
curious, the baseline accidents as been discussed earlier on this call, that the numbers of being 4th and 12th certainly look bad, but I'm curious where in the confines of the overall area are most of those accidents? How many of them are in Hillview? How many of them are in Laurel, wherever? I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the numbers there reflect the overall, for all, for citywide. So we don't have information, at least from the Office of Traffic Safety, as to which area they have the most accidents. So I mean, I cannot provide you that information, but they probably have it somewhere there that, where they're.
18 is when they had that accident where those kids were hurt or killed. I don't remember which. On Santa Cruz, where some guy thought he was stepping on the gas. He was parked and he went forward, and he got confused and ran into the kid and pinned him up against the wall. I think down by Walgreens or something like that. But there had been several accidents down in Santa Cruz too. But of course, some of that's changed now with the relocation. But it'd be interesting to see the scalar information. But okay, all right, thanks. Good, that was a great presentation. Thanks.
Just a comment on statistics. I guess the question is why Menlo Park ranks so high or so bad. Could be that Menlo Park has a lot of kids that walk to school or ride their bikes. So, it's got to be a norm, as opposed to somewhere else where all the kids are dropped off and picked up by their parents with a car. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids
Or
from
busing.
didn't go down.
Yeah, there's certainly
busing.
some layers there. The other thing I'm interested in is the effects of the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit when it's in force and effect, and what that does to traffic flow through that area. I mean, less so on Elder and whatever the other side street was, but certainly Santa Cruz Avenue is a thoroughfare east-west. So
Yeah,
I'm curious if some of the surface streets have to pick that up, or what happens.
Yeah, that's a good question, Tom, and that's something that definitely will work with our PD and get some anecdotal experience or observations from them, and see how that affects traffic flow. Obviously, it will affect traffic flow, especially on Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and then last question, since I just thought of it, maybe you said this, will you be rolling out these changes all at once, or will you be starting at maybe Hillview and then looking at other campuses?
Right now, so the work orders that have been released are going to be for 5 schools. So that includes Hillview School and Bellhaven, and I forgot the 3 other schools. So it's going to be done in phases.
Okay, thank you.
So for the committee, Chief McCulley, good evening to everybody. As we have in the past, I will do an analysis of collisions specifically in the school zones of the schools in Atherton to give you a perspective that way. And then Mr. Whitmer, in response to your question, I will work up some time distance samples so you can kind of see based on what speed, how far the pedestrian would be from the car where a collision would occur.
Yeah, when they have those studies, Chief, they, obviously the person has to be somewhere for them to be putting out this information. It's just that that one piece of information never seems to be available. That's all. I'm sure you can get it.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions for Menlo Park, I'm going to say thank you to Renee for coming and providing the presentation. And I'll say thank you to the chief in advance for providing some of that statistical information around the schools upcoming. And Chief, we can share that with both committees for their perusal. I think anecdotally, I think that we know that there are some streets where, they're effectively shut down during pickup and drop off. I think Councilmember Whitmer illustrated Encinal School where during drop off and pickup time, traffic doesn't move at all, at least in front of the school itself. But we'll have additional information forthcoming. Again, this is not an action item, it's just for information. So again, thank you, Renee.
Thank you, and look forward if you decide in the future to implement this, especially on Encinal, let me know. We're going to be working with you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Regarding the AB 43 traffic safety.
Yeah,
Robert?
so I'm going to say thank you. I'll be brief. The last presentation went a bit longer than anticipated. So you have a link to the legislation in the agenda, and it's just being provided for informational purposes with regards to recent law changes. Most of the changes go into effect starting in June of 24, but there are a couple of items that have more immediate effect, but do not necessarily impact the town. And so to cover a couple of the highlights, the new legislation slightly changes the way that speed limits can be analyzed and set. Engineering and traffic surveys are still required. Right now, we're required to round to the nearest 5 miles an hour and are allowed to drop it by 5 miles an hour, or if we're required to round up, in essence, to round down instead in setting our speed limits. And we do that regularly. Most of our streets are set at 25 miles an hour. We do have a couple that are set at 30 and 35. But the items that are coming into more immediate effect is creation of a definition of a business activity district, in which case jurisdictions that have those sections of street that meet those requirements can reduce the speeds by an additional 5 miles an hour to either 20 or 25 if they're set higher. But there are strict definitions of what that means, and that includes how many businesses within a set distance, whether or not there are uninterrupted links without traffic devices, etc. And so, for example, think 50% of the fronting properties have to be either retail or dining. It needs to have traffic signals or stop signs, other traffic control devices located in intervals of no more than 600 feet, and a few other things. And so that is something that comes into immediate effect. And so I think you probably heard some stories about San Francisco planning on certain streets that they will be highlighting as business districts and reducing the speed limits in those areas. But There is a new item that is coming. The rules are yet to be set with regards to what is termed I think it's called a safety zone. And so that'll be an area that likely has a high level of pedestrian or bicycle accidents or other accidents that would justify an additional speed limit reduction. So the legislation requires that Caltrans update the MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, to provide the required definitions in its next iteration, so that jurisdictions can have clarity on how that can be implemented. So right now, the rules are not yet set, so we don't have those. And so as those rules are developed, we will be bringing that information forward. And again, analyzing whether or not it makes sense for us to implement any sort of compliant reductions pursuant to the studies that we normally do in terms of the speed surveys, et cetera.
Thanks, Robert. This is really for information, there is no action required here, right?
No, this is strictly for informational purposes. Like I said, it was recent legislation. I thought it would be beneficial for both the Transportation Committee as well as the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee to be aware of.
Thank you. The next item is the Watkins Avenue crossing.
Yeah, so this again is provided strictly for informational purposes. As you may all be aware, the town entered into a memorandum of understanding with the JPB related to the closure of the Atherton rail station. As part of that memorandum of understanding, Caltrain is responsible to design and implement safety improvements at the Watkins Avenue crossing, and that includes the installation of 4-quadrant gates. And so this is a brief presentation kind of highlighting some of the improvements that are going to be included in that project. And wanted to share this with you again for informational purposes, just so that you're aware of the plans for the crossing. Ultimately, I'm going to say the agreement that we have requires the improvements to be completed by the end of December in 2023, which allows time for design, regulatory review and approval. That includes both processing through the CPUC as well as the Federal Railway Administration, which I'll get into in just a little bit, because it's the town's intent, and with the concurrence of Caltrain, that after these improvements are implemented, that we be able to apply for an extension of the quiet zone in town. So right now, we have a quiet zone that covers the crossing at Watkins. So trains approaching the Watkins crossing aren't supposed to be honking their horns. By implementing these improvements, we're intending to extend that so that the train horns are not required to sound approaching the Watkins Avenue crossing as well. And so this is an overview of the intersection, the crossing. And I'll highlight a few items and go into a little bit of detail in the next couple of slides. But right now, the way that the crossings are, we have arms that go down at each of the approaches. And so that would be westbound approaching the tracks, eastbound approaching the tracks from Middlefield, westbound approaching the tracks from El Camino. Each of those arms are, let's say the arms on the west.
They just go on the side of the direction of the traffic today.
What's that?
They just go on this down on the side of the traffic. So
That's
if you're
correct.
going east, then the west gate goes down just on the eastbound and others. The other issue there with that though, Robert, which we talked about a long time ago when I was on the rail committee, in addition to the dangerous part of this is people, of course, the quad gate would help, but people coming off Dinkelspiel, they just turn and they can't see. So there may be something that we need to put here, a sign or something that just says, train approaching or something like that as you're coming out on Dinkelspiel to turn left. But yeah, this is a great thing for us. But just add that little extra thing because it is a dangerous turnoff.
Yeah. So the other items are currently the roadway gate also includes a ped gate. The current standards require that the ped gate be split from the roadway gate. And so there's actually going to be a 2-gate system on I'll call it the southern side of the crossing. And so there's going to be some adjustment in terms to the pedestrian access. And we'll have that restriped. They're also going to have to widen a little bit the platform for the crossing to accommodate the pedestrian movements. And so let me stop this, go here. So on the eastern side of the crossing, the crossing on the approach side is going to be moved and reoriented a little bit to be even with the gate on the other side. The pedestrian access is going to be widened a little bit towards the channel so that there's a clear pedestrian access with a ped gate on the southern side. The pedestrian crossings will remain solely on the southern side of the tracks. We're going to have the exit gate installed for the westbound traffic, even with the approach gate for eastbound.
Okay.
Some minor modifications again to the pedestrian access and widening and providing a little clearer path. Relocation of the opening in the curb and extending it so it's provides for a more direct crossing from Dinkelspiel across Watkins towards the sidewalk. Though proposed, we're a little concerned about the impacts to visibility, a pedestrian barricade to keep people from crossing opposite the sidewalk. We're interested in providing additional enhancements to reduce the likelihood of pedestrians using that side of the street. However, due to the grade differences, we're a little concerned about sight visibility coming for westbound traffic, seeing pedestrians or cars stopped at station lane if there's a pedestrian barricade installed. So
are you going to put a crosswalk in there from Dinkelspiel over to the far side?
We had a meeting with representatives from the California Public Utilities Commission as well as the Federal Railway Administration. They do have some concerns about placement of a crosswalk in proximity to the crossing. And so we're waiting to hear feedback from them as to whether or not that would be permitted.
Yeah, so because just like we mentioned, the guys from Laurel or from Lloyden Park coming over to go to the library and crossing Fair Oaks. Well, from the library, they go over here to play sports. And so they're riding their bikes or they're walking or they're coming back and forth from Encinal. And, this is a dangerous crossing area for them. So just mention it.
Yeah, so that was certainly one of the items that was raised, and we were waiting to hear back from the CPUC with regards to how close that crosswalk can be, and if it's something that requires some sort of waiver to install or not. We just had that meeting last week, and it was fairly successful and informative for us. Caltrain is going to be taking the information that they gathered from that meeting to move forward with the design. But again, there's a couple of things that we're waiting for input from them on, and that includes that crosswalk. One of the other items under consideration is potential lighting of the pedestrian crossing across the tracks. We're a little bit concerned about light pollution, and so if included, we were considering some bollard type lights that provide more directed lighting as opposed to higher scale lighting. And so that's something that is currently being investigated as well. And so just some additional highlighted information in terms of what's going to happen. There's going to be some additional warning signs installed advising of the crossing, but not just that, because we're looking at extending the quiet zone. It's going to have additional signage advising that that there are not going to be any train horns as well. So that's part of the project, as well as to include those signage, as well as to upgrade any pavement markings so that they comply with current standards. So with that, I'm available for any questions. Councilmember Whitmer, thanks for the feedback. I will see if there's any way to provide some sort of activated, I say we will have signage approach on the Watkins, on the station lane approach to Watkins with regards to the crossing. I don't know if we can have something that's also activated by the warning signal or not.
Yeah, see, I've seen in other communities, it says, train approaching, and then it's synchronized with what's happening. But, it is, especially at night, it's a tough thing. Plus the crosswalk, I think, is important because kids just shoot across there. I don't think we've had a lot of accidents there, but the park and tying the park and the library together are important safely. Anyway, thanks. Sorry, I probably give more input or questions than Mike did. I'm sorry for that.
No, that's okay. Any comments from the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee?
It's like a good plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. Since there's nothing on old business, can we just get the highlights on the staff reports?
So are you talking about the monthly traffic reports, Jerome?
Right.
So yeah, in the essence of time, we can go through each one. We've analyzed it closely.
I think if there's any highlights that you would like to report, Chief, that'd be great.
Yeah, Sergeant Metzger, are there any highlights that you want to report?
Nothing in particular. Numbers throughout the last 3 months have been primarily the same as they would be for this time of year. We have had a couple of our motor officers dedicated as field training officers for some new recruits. So, if we were to have had all of those out working traffic enforcement every day, the numbers would be quite a bit higher. But again, our agency, we're small and officers wear many hats. And both of our traffic officers are also field training officers. So when we have two people in training, then their training is instead of about writing tickets.
One big highlight I'd like to relay, so far this year, we have some particular energetic officers on night shift that have been doing some really good DUI enforcement. I believe by the end of the year, we're going to have close to 50 or 60 DUI arrests, which is a dramatic improvement over the last several years. It's always been a focus of mine, having a traffic law enforcement background. Each one of those arrests, as you can imagine, is potentially saving a victim's life. It's saving the suspect's life. So it's really important work, and it just shows you the amount of dangerous drivers that are coming through Atherton. A lot of these are on ECR, but some of the side roads as well. So there's been some really great work by our nighttime officers.
So Chief or Dave, when I looked at the statistics, and so there says there was 59 speed citations and 140 written warnings. And so, you know, like I asked you at the for baseball or for bicycle, what's the criteria for the cutover?
What's the difference between somebody getting a warning and a citation?
Yeah. What's that level? Is there like they're 10 miles an hour over, or they're 20 miles an hour over, or 15, or they were driving recklessly, or what is it?
Well, whether an officer decides to give a driver a citation, a ticket, or a warning, a written warning or verbal warning, there's a number of factors that's included. You know, the time of day, the amount of pedestrians in the area, and of course, you know, how fast were they going? You know, and it even includes their attitude when we contact them.
Okay.
You know, I think you understand.
Better give that dog a warning.
Yeah.
Not a written one, though. Okay, well, that's fine.
I can comment.
That's fine. I just wanted to understand, because I ask the chief this all the time on the bike stuff, you know, where we're giving verbal warnings all the time. And I say, when am I going to actually give somebody a citation to stop driving the wrong way at night with dark clothes on? You can't see, you know, things like that. So it's just as those numbers jumped out at me, and, you know, I would have asked this at a council meeting as well. So I appreciate it.
I think it's a good question about enforcement philosophy. In fact, we just discussed this at one of our monthly sergeants meetings to make sure we're all on the same page. The way I was raised, and I know David agrees as well, is what our job is to do enforcement through the least amount of activity that we need to do. So is the verbal warning going to work, or does this person need a ticket? Officers certainly have discretion in what they do. And my philosophy is start at the lowest level. If they need a ticket, they'll receive one. And it's definitely not about any revenue that we receive. My mantra is always quality over quantity every time, quality over quantity. And if that person can drive away feeling that they were treated professionally, even though they got a ticket, I think they understand. And that's what we want to accomplish. And then we also, too, in our RIM system, we keep extensive records. We're able to tell if this car has been stopped by us before, given a warning about a month ago. Well, guess what? That person's probably going to get a ticket this time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Because, you know, I agree, you know, with your approach, as you know, but at the same time, you know, I'd like to see the speed dropped on some of the streets, and there is a lot of speeding, and you guys are there for, you know, 15, 20 minutes and you watch, and I appreciate that. And then you go off to another location, and sometimes then the speed goes right back up. And so I don't know. If there was a way we could actually get to like like in England and over in the European Commonwealth, you know, you got these speed cameras that send the tickets to you. I think that would certainly go a long way for slowing, you know, fixing some of the crossover streets, cut through traffic that speeds down specific number of streets and causes accidents and things like that. So anyway, that's.
Well, as you know, I'm always supportive, if you are, of adding more police officers.
Well, I've suggested that to the city manager before.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
I think, you know, Councilman Whitmer, I think when it comes down to it, you know, we're Atherton, we're not Redwood City or East Palo Alto, and we're not going to just, I don't necessarily feel right just arbitrarily taking a picture of somebody speeding and sending a ticket to them. I mean, we're Atherton. We give people the personal touch, and if we're going to get somebody,
no problem, Sergeant. You know, I've known you for a long time, and you do a lot of traffic stuff outside my house. I appreciate everything you guys do and what a TJ does and all the guys. Okay, so I do appreciate it. It's just that those numbers jumped out. That's the only reason I asked the question. They were higher than I thought. You know, I thought the warnings would be lower, but that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, officers. If we have no future agenda items, we can open it up for public comments. Is there any member of the public that has just joined in? I guess there is no public comment, and so the next meeting date is January 11th, Tuesday. And can I have a motion for adjournment?
Moved.
And
Not sure what, I lost count. Second.
Thank
Motion.
you. So adjourned.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the attendance today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
bicycle
Thank you.
folks.
Thanks. Robert, good job. Very good job, Robert. I appreciate what you did. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
guys
thank you
for
all.
enduring me. I'm sorry I delayed the meeting probably. All right. Have